Howdy guys and gals, welcome back to the Social Regressive, where we're going to answer the question, can a $99 stock possibly be worth it? The stock that you see right back here is the Boyds @1. It has all kinds of configurable parts, so you can make this more comfortable for prone or offhand shooting. Right now we have the swept back grip for the kind of hunter style, but we could put in a more vertical grip to make this better for prone and bench shooting. This has an adjustable cheek piece, it has an adjustable butt pad, and you can swap out some of these other parts to make it do certain things or fit you a little bit better. Now this one, as configured, probably costs about $230. Down here we have a stock that, as configured, is about $132. Now, depending on your action, the Boyds Spike Camp could actually be just $100. It kind of depends on how yours is set up. This one needs a little bit of extra work. This is set up for the Savage axis, so this one needs the integral lug right here, the recoil lug. You have a mag catch up here, and then it does also have to come with a couple extra parts, like its own trigger guard and a front mag catch. It also has just a little bit more inletting all around for its magazine system. So yeah, this one does cost a little bit more, but for some of you guys that maybe have a blind magazine and things are a little bit simpler, it could be just $100, which is amazing value for money if this is actually a comfortable rifle stock, and that's what we're going to find out here today. We took a look at some images earlier of this stock and tried to figure out, okay, what's this actually going to feel like? Does this have a shape that we would actually be interested in? And I am happy to report today that the real deal that we have here on the bench and here in my hand, that this is actually even better than what I expected. This is a wonderfully comfortable thumb hole. Right here, as you can see, we have a pretty generous opening for the hand, and this is going to, it's going to have a little bit of palm swell, so it will kind of fit into that kind of cavity in your hand right there. And it just fits wonderfully into my hand. Now, some of you guys, it might vary. If you have a smaller hand, it's still gonna feel really great. If you have an absolutely gigantic hand, maybe this might feel a little bit tight, but for the most part, I think this is gonna fit just about everybody. This is a kind of a shape that I really like, and this is one that I made for myself back on the telekinesis rifle. I wanted a stock that not only could have, you know, kind of a nice vertical grip for my hand and get a nice reach to the trigger and have everything else kind of sorted to fit me, but I wanted one that would really kind of grip my hand and I could have a lot of control over it. As you can see, holding this stock right now just in front of the camera, that it really is the pistol grip that we have been looking for a long time. This is one that it feels like I could one-hand this rifle. And I know that there's no actual action inside here, but for me, I really like a stock that gives me a lot of control with this kind of forward hand. I want to be able to feel the stock across the webbing of my, you know, where my thumb meets my hand. I want this to really nestle inside there and feel like I'm not gripping onto a stick or, you know, trying to grab onto a piece of plywood or something. I want this to feel like it's a part of my body. I want it to feel like it's connected. And I want these angles to be just right for the kind of shooting that I'm doing. What this is really set up for is mostly for your hunters, for your offhand shooters. This has a little bit more of a laid back grip than you're going to get with a prone rifle stock, like you get with the Boyds Pro Varmint, or if you have the more vertical grip on the @1. It feels a lot like maybe the A2 grip on an AR-15, one that kind of lays back at that sort of angle. And that means that this is going to fit really well when you're leaning forward for that quick offhand shot, for that snap shot. And if you're standing, if you're kneeling, if you're in one of your more hasty positions, this is going to feel fantastic. If you have a more vertical grip, sometimes it's really not that easy to do that. That's great for targets and it's great for when you're laying down, but this is going to be your better option for when you're out in the woods. Now this does have a little bit more of a vertical angle than you're going to get with some of the others, like the Boyds Heritage or any of their other more traditional shapes, or even this hunter grip that you get on the @1. So this will actually flex into your prone positions pretty well. And if you have to do maybe a shorter session of prone, this is not one that's going to kink up your wrist as badly as a lot of the other kind of classical shapes. Now the rest of this, this is the big deal, the grip that we have right here, and I'm happy to give it a massive thumbs up. I guess before we move back to the rest of this, I do want to point out a couple of other things. First off, since this is smoothed all the way around, those of you that might have had some issues with the angularity of the @1, I think you're going to be much more happy with this. This feels very comfortable. It's actually more comfortable than a lot of the actual pistol grips that you get out there, just because it is so wonderfully rounded and you do get that decent palm swell. And like I say, because you are so close to the trigger guard, it's going to be very natural to get onto the trigger. You're not going to think about it. And that's exactly what I want from a stock. I want it to just kind of be a part of my body, and I don't want to have to think about what I'm doing before I take the shot. Now moving forward up here, we do have a very similar forearm to what we get on the @1. This shares a lot of the same angles. We have these wonderful facets that you can see right here when the light strikes it right. But this is a little bit more rounded, so I think some of you guys that might have had some issues with the angularity and how it might kind of feel awkward on your hand, I think you guys are going to like this a lot better. This one feels a bit more natural. This is also, even though it is kind of a thin forearm, this is a little bit bigger than what you're usually going to get with a classical hunting stock. And especially the stocks that come on a lot of the lesser expensive rifles out there, those plastic stocks. We're going to talk about those here in a second and why the Spike Camp is going to be such a good thing to slap onto your rifle, to swap out the kind of plastic piece of junk that came on yours. Moving back through here, we have a pretty high comb, which I'm very happy for. I want to get a cheek weld, not a chin weld, when I have everything configured on this rifle. I want to get my scope as low as possible, of course, but I do want as much help as I can get back here so that when I go to take that shot, I'm really kind of squished into my cheek here, and everything should just feel very solid. I don't want the stock to be cutting me right here, which is another one of those problems that we get with plastic stocks usually. Under here, you're going to see some kind of scalloped out areas. This has all been scooped out, not just for lightening to reduce the weight, but also to make room for the wrist. So watch this. When I am holding this stock in pretty much any position, even if it's kind of flat up against my forearm, my wrist is not touching the stock. I don't have any interference. There's nothing kind of bonking against my wrist right there. And this is cut out in a big way for that reason. So whether you're a lefty or a righty, you get one of these set up for left or right, you can see that we have this cut on both sides. Moving toward the back, we have one really cool feature going on back here. This butt pad, okay, first off, you're going to see that we do have more meat to the stock right back here. This is where the bulk of our weight is going to be, which we're going to talk about here in a second, why this is such a big deal. But back here, this butt pad shape is exactly the same as what we get on the Boyds @1. So some of the options that you get for the Boyds @1, you can actually put them onto the Spike Camp. This was a brilliant idea on their part. This is actually the exact same butt pad, this little kind of thin, squishy one. This is the same as what we get on the @1. And if you have a Magnum rifle, or you just want to be able to add a little bit more squish to yours, or be able to add a little bit more length of pull, you can go to the Boyds @1 accessories store, kind of catalog page, and you can find some extra parts. This right here is a limb saver recoil pad that's labeled with Boyds. You can get this and just slap it straight onto this. You can put it onto the @1 if you have one of those, or you can put it on here to add about an extra inch length of pull and be able to absorb recoil a good bit better. So right now, as configured, this is about a 13.5 inch length of pull. And if we add that extra butt pad onto there, we're gonna end up at about 14.5 inches, or we're getting close into there, which is my particular length of pull. That's going to fit me really well. Now let's talk about the why. There are a lot of us that need a stock like this one for a good handful of reasons. First off, it's going to make our rifles look a whole lot cooler, and it's going to make it more personalized. This is the Walnut model that you see right here, and I picked this out largely so that you guys can see some of the facets on here. This is going to help you be able to see the shape a whole lot better with this glossy finish. There are a couple different options you can get though. I think most of you are probably going to opt for the laminates because they are just gorgeous. Any of the colors that we've shown back through here on the @1 stocks, on the Barracuda, the Heritage, some of the others that we've shown here on the channel, these are available for the Spike Camp. So you can kind of choose a color scheme that makes you happy. If you want to go for a camouflage, if you're a hunter, you can choose one of those. You can go for this, kind of classic look, or there are some really crazy laminates out there. So if you want to go with something that's a little bit funky, maybe it has your school colors, you can choose one of those. Now, aside from fixing the appearance of our rifles, one of the biggest things is that this is going to fix some of the real issues that we have with some of our lesser expensive rifles. If you have a Ruger American, a Savage Axis, a Hoa 1500, a Remington 783, or one of the other kind of lesser expensive rifles that shows up a lot in your online catalogs, one of the biggest things that's holding that rifle back right now is its stock. Now, it might be that your stock is fine. They are getting a little bit better with their processes, but in general, there are still some issues. First off, the stock is probably not going to be quite rigid enough, especially if you want to put your rifle onto a rest or a bipod. This rifle that you see behind me right here, this is a Stevens 200, and with the original plastic stock that came on it, this was either a half MOA gun or a 6 MOA gun. I've talked about this before. But that stock was so flexible that somehow, if I put it on a rest or a bipod, I had no idea if it was going to shoot a 6-inch group or if it was going to shoot a half-inch group. All the hardware was totally up to the job, and yours probably is too. If you have any of these modern rifles, it's probably extremely accurate. All that hardware wants to do a really good job. You have good barrels, good actions, great bolts. A lot of these have floating bolt heads now and excellent light triggers that have that extra little safety right down the middle that can make a light pull very safe. But the thing that is holding all that back, like I mentioned, is going to be this. This is going to add that rigidity that you want. This is not going to flex in any kind of changing weather, or if you have it on a bipod or a rest, this is going to behave just the same way as if you're holding it. And it should make everything much more reliable and possibly much more accurate. The other things you have to think about are going to be your kind of weight and balance, because there is good weight. The typical plastic stock is going to pitch your weight very far forward because all of your metal begins right here and just keeps on going out the front. The heaviest part of the whole rifle is going to be the barrel. And so if you have a plastic stock where this is all hollowed out, it's really not going to be a very stable rig when you're out in the woods. Yes, it'll be very light to carry, but when it actually comes time to take that shot, it is not going to feel all that steady because the optimal position that you really want for your balance point is going to be generally right around the front of the action. You want it to be right about here. With that plastic stock, it's going to actually be somewhere out here, kind of under your forearm. And your rear hand just kind of ends up floating back here and trying to keep everything in position. This is going to fix that, especially with that extra meat that I was talking about right back here. This is going to pitch that weight a little further back, and your balance point should end up right about here, even with a scope attached. That's going to make this a little easier to get on target when it comes time to take that pop-up shot. It's also going to make it more stable when you have to hold this for long periods of time and wait for that perfect shot. And then when it comes time to track as well, this is going to be more stable swinging through that target and taking that moving shot. Now the last thing is going to be the shape. This is going to fix some of the issues that you have with that plastic stock because really you know that they're all exactly the same. No matter what kind of neat little designs they may add there, in the end what you have is kind of a low profile ambidextrous hunter shape. It's going to have a thin forearm up front, which, is pretty easy to wrap your fingers all the way around and be holding the barrel. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world. Your grip is going to be a really laid-back hunter-style grip, which is an ancient design that it does work when you are taking, this kind of leaning forward offhand shot. But for a lot of other uses, it's really not that comfortable. And even in that, that instance where you're out hunting, it's still not the most comfortable that you can get. Myself, I do prefer a bit more of a vertical angle, and I do really like the Thumbhole shape, which is why when I built my own stock, I designed one like that. This is one that if you can give this a try sometime, I think you're really going to like the way that this feels. It's kind of like the way that we feel about the AR-15. You might remember when you first tried one of these, tried an AR-15, that it felt strangely comfortable. It felt strangely ergonomic, like you'd been missing something all of your life, and suddenly this stock, the way that it's set up with that more vertical grip, that it just kind of felt more stable, a bit more human. There's just something about it that lends itself to a really neat feel, and this gets into that. This kind of fixes a lot of that issue that you're going to have where your wrist gets really kinked, especially if you're having to wait for that shot. It just, like I say, just sitting here right now at the bench holding this like this, if this were a similar walnut classical shape, I would not be feeling all that comfortable right now, but this feels like nothing. I'm just kind of waving this around, pointing it like the silly people in action movies waving around their guns. But moving back from there, we have this higher comb, and like I said, this is going to be able to get your eye straight through that lens on your scope, because a lot of the plastic stocks that we have, they have a very simple ambidextrous shape, and they're just going to drop from here. They just kind of go back at an angle to be able to hopefully fit just about everybody. They're going to be pretty thin across the top, not fat like this, and so this one right here is just going to feel very comfortable in your cheek overall. It's just a nice wide shelf for you to sit on, and this should be a really good position. You can see that this is not kind of tapering off, so that you have to kind of move your face perhaps to kind of get into the scope correctly. This one's going to be set up for everybody, no matter how long your neck is. I'm a taller guy, I have a pretty long neck, I have a long distance from my shoulder up to my cheek. And I can just get this set up exactly the way that I want, and I'm not going to actually be changing my vertical spacing here when I get this set up just for me. Depending on your action, there may be some extra parts that you can pick up on the Boyds accessories page. We talked about the butt pad already, but you also do get some extra trigger guards. There are some steel ones that you can get, which we're going to swap onto this one. The plastic that comes on here by default it seems like it's a fiber reinforced plastic, so it probably is going to be pretty tough. They seem to have upgraded this from some of the ones that they had in the past. And that applies to the mag catch as well. They do have a metal one that you can get for the Savage Axis, and they have a mag catch for a couple of different other models out there. Check out your rifle, check out the accessories page, and see if they can swap some of those parts out. For example, that trigger guard up here, you could get stainless or you could get blued steel on this one. I mentioned that a stock like this is going to improve the balance by moving the weight further backward. This is going to increase the weight overall though, so if weight is paramount for you, if you are going to be backpacking in 20 miles to go get your game and then dragging the animal back another 20 miles, then probably that plastic stock is going to be the one for you. It's just going to keep that weight as low as possible. However, if you're more interested in fixing that balance and you don't mind taking on a little extra weight, this is going to be the choice for most of us. As you see right here, as configured for the Savage Axis, this comes out to be a little bit less than 2¼ pounds. So yes, it's probably about a pound heavier than the original stock, but for me, that's good weight. One other wild thing that you can attach to this, since you can swap on some of the @1 parts here on the back, since this does have the same shape here at the back, check this out. This is my Savage 12 FV that we showed off in the Mile Challenge, where we took a 6.5 Creedmoor rifle, an inexpensive one, and we tricked this thing out until it was ready to hit targets at a mile. And this is a part that I didn't really show off before. I talked about this very briefly, but there's some extra parts you can get for the @1 that includes this vertical riser that you can get right here to get this up on a level with the cheek riser, and you can actually get this. It's just much better in the prone. It feels much better to have this high up on your shoulder. And then this right here is another piece that it kind of adds some cant. So you can dial in the cant that you want for your shoulder. This is kind of a big deal. If you want a rifle that actually fits you, you want something that actually conforms to the shape of your body, and your body is not really built along all these straight lines. If we were to shoot from the sternum, then yeah, that would be the vertical straight up and down stock is the way to go. But for the most part, okay, if I take this stock and not even looking at it, I'm just going to nestle this into my shoulder right where the pec kind of gets into the delts right here, and okay, that right there should be my perfect angle. That's where it really fits neatly into my arm. And as you might be able to see in the camera angle here, that means that my rifle is actually canted pretty far to the left. So what I could do is I could get that little extendo, or that canting piece, put it between the butt pad and the rest of the stock right here, and then I can loosen that up, turn that to be the exact cant that I need for my shoulder, and this is going to be a perfect fit for when I get out and have to take that hasty shot. Now if you stay with the straight up and down, it works just fine. I've used these for years and years and years. That's what we have, and it's what we're used to. We can kind of straighten everything out, but if you can get that little bit of extra comfort, I think for a lot of us it's worth it. At $99, there really is no competition for the Boyds Spike Camp, but we'll take a look at some other ones that get into some higher price tags. We do have that Boyds @1 that we talked about, and if you want something that can be configured for all kinds of people, this is the one to choose, because you can swap out the various parts like we talked about, and you can kind of swap this around for hunting and offhand use over to the prone angle if you want to be able to do that. And then you can adjust these parts so that, maybe your daughter wants to do some shooting, you can bring that butt pad in and, kind of get that shorter length of pull. And then when it's time for you to take your shots, all you have to do is just extend it back out. And this cheek riser is going to help us to not only get into different scopes that we might have up here, but it's going to help us fit different faces. For example, I need a very different drop at the cheek than most other folks do. A lot of time out at the range, I can't even see through some of the scopes that people have set up. That's how high the cheek riser is. So yeah, you can swap all these parts around and make this the stock that you want. And this one, you're pretty much fixed where you are. The only thing you can do is maybe extend your length of pull by adding some of those parts that we talked about back through here. Now, another option you might think about that kind of splits the difference between the two is going to be the Boyds @1 Thumbhole. The big difference between this and this is that you have a thumb hole here, and you don't get those reconfigurable parts just right here, but you do get the swappable fore-end parts right here, kind of heading toward the toe. You have all the same adjustable pieces back through here, and this is a wonderfully comfortable stock, and I do highly recommend this. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on this video, because we are going to take this particular stock that you see in my hand in shady camo laminate, and we are going to install this on a Ruger American long action for .270 Winchester. And we're going to see how that goes. This takes a little bit more work than it does with the Savages, like the axis that you see right here. This one is pretty easy to set up. You just kind of screw some things into place. This one's going to take some work. Don't miss that video. But this one has a very similar thumb hole feel to what we get here. It's a very similar angle, pretty much the exact same thing. The difference is here, you do get a little bit more of a pinky hook on the Spike Camp, which I quite like. It really kind of locks the hand into place, and this one is a bit more open. This one is probably going to work out a bit better for you gloved shooters, maybe way up north. You get a little bit more room in here, I think. This one doesn't lock in quite as much on the thumb. It still feels pretty good, but it doesn't feel like it's really connecting quite as much with the webbing of my hand right there. And then since you don't have that kind of pinky hook right there, then you're going to be able to have a little bit more space with your gloved hand. And then this does still have that very easy reach to the trigger. So do think about this one. And also I should mention that with the extra hardware that we have toward the back, this one is going to further push that balance a little bit further toward the back on this. There are plenty of traditionalists that will like the checkering, the embellishments, and the fore-end tip that you can get in a different kind of wood. And these are all things that Boyds offers with those stocks. But then those of us that maybe want to try on this kind of new modernist look, I really like it myself, because not only is this something that kind of stands out like a sports car out at the range in our case, this is going to attract some eyeballs, but this is one that has kind of changed some of the functionality. This pistol grip shape and that thumb hole really is very comfortable and very functional, and who knows, you might see me out in the woods with either one of these. Thanks for watching these videos. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell down below. Especially hit that button, because we're going to have all kinds of content coming out that YouTube wants to suppress, and we want to get out to you guys. The notification bell is probably your best chance. Thank you to Boyds for sending some of these stocks for me to check out here, and thank you to patrons of the Destructive Arts that keep videos like these coming out. They're the ones that buy a lot of the materials that we use around here, like gunpowder and bullets. They keep the lights going, they keep the cameras rolling, they get me some of the better audio gear. So thank you to Sportsman's Guide and Stan and Mary at the 338 Lapua Magnum level, and Joseph Davis, Peter, and Mr. No Name at the 300 Win Mag level. Those are our patrons of the Destructive Arts that are making it happen. And if anybody else wants to chip in $1 or $2 a month to keep these videos coming, I'll put a link around here. See you guys around. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Even if you didn't like this particular content, go ahead and subscribe. There's probably something coming that's more up your alley. Check out this playlist right here. This is going to have videos in a similar vein to what you just watched. These 2 videos we cherry-picked for you. And finally, The Social Regressive is on Patreon. So you can become a patron of the Destructive Arts and earn some goodies while helping us to provide high-quality videos just by kicking us a few bucks a month. Thanks so much for your patronage.